What's going on, NBA Draft fans? It's your boy Corey Tulaba, the Wolf of Ball Street, the NBA Draft Dude, here with another team-centric NBA big board for the 2022 NBA Draft. This time we are heading down south, headed towards Disney World to take on the Orlando Magic and what they should do with their potentially 3 picks in the 2022 NBA Draft. And let's get it started with the top selection of the draft, going backwards from 7 to 1, based on the top 7 prospects they should be scouting right now, given the fact that the lottery hasn't happened and we don't know where they'll be placed. They have the second worst record, which means that they can't go any worse than 6. So we're going to go over 7 guys that they should possibly target for that pick. If worst case scenario, they drop all the way down to 6. At number 7, I think that they should target Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray is a guy who is probably going to return potentially top 5 value. He fits the archetype of the player that you want in the modern NBA. Look at the NBA playoffs. He looks like he could step in and take on the role as one of these versatile swing wings. The Magic have that in Franz Wagner. So adding another guy that plays a little bit like the modern forward is an absolute no-brainer idea if they happen to fall all the way down to that 6 pick range. Even if they get to, say, number 4, Keegan Murray is definitely a guy that you have to target potentially, and you have to at least have a conversation about if you're the Magic front office. But he knocks down threes, he rebounds, he gets steals and blocks, he can defend multiple positions. He's a guy that, while he's a little older, maybe he's not sexy, he's definitely a guy that is going to produce in the NBA, so you have to think about Keegan Murray here. Next up on my list of guys the Orlando Magic should target is Duke's AJ Griffin. Griffin had a historic shooting season for a freshman, and that's something that the Orlando Magic desperately need. They need floor spacers. Their guards are not known as shooters. Their bigs, while they could space it a little bit, are not known as shooters. Mo Bamba was second on the team in three-point percentage this season, so they need a guy that can knock down threes. Griffin, also, like Keegan Murray, is a guy that looks like a modern swing wing in the NBA, which is what you want in the playoffs. He looks like he could be, your Jaylen Brown, maybe Jimmy Butler type of guy. The defense isn't there yet. It's a work in progress, but I think that he'll get there. He also has more off the bounce game than I think he's given credit for. So I think he would fit Orlando really well if they dropped a little bit in the draft. All right, at number 5 is Jaden Ivey. I love Ivy as a prospect, but I don't love him so much as a fit for the Magic. Now, if you're drafting and you're in a position to draft him, you're not so worried about fit, but I do think that the Magic will have to start thinking about what they're going to do with some of the other players on their roster if they do go with Jaden Ivey, because I think Ivy needs to have the ball in his hands to make use of that unbelievable athleticism. If you want to make the Ja Morant, even a Zach LaVine comparisons, this is a guy who's going to have to learn to play as a primary guy in the NBA and take advantage of all that extra space the NBA will provide. Right now, the Magic don't have that, but they're on their way. But I think that you got to give him the ball. And can he play alongside Jalen Suggs? I think so. Can he play alongside Markelle Fultz? Yeah, maybe. Can he play alongside a Cole Anthony? I don't know. The Magic are going to have to figure out that backcourt. It's really crowded right now. But Ivy is so talented that you got to take the best talent available in this scenario if they drop a little bit. But Jaden Ivey and the Magic may not be a perfect marriage, but you move some things around, it might start making more sense long term. Next guy on Orlando's board should be Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe, the mystery man. What are we going to get? I think his talent is so apparent when you watch some of the high school stuff that even though it's going to take a little while to come out, you look at Jalen Green, you look at Anthony Edwards. It took a little while into their rookie season until they started showing the type of player they can actually be. And now you add on the fact that Shaedon Sharpe didn't play organized ball for a year versus where Jalen Green was playing against pros in the G League and Anthony Edwards was playing high-level D1 ball. It's going to take Sharpe some time. But this is a guy who is one of the nastiest off-the-bounce shot creators in the class. He can play off the ball. He has unbelievable athleticism, ridiculous, crazy bounce. I think he's a much cleaner fit than a guy like Jaden Ivey because he could play off the ball some as a shooter and floor spacer, but he's just such an exciting prospect. And if he played, he might be even in the top 2 or 3 conversation because of the skills that he offers. There's definitely things he's going to have to work on. He's definitely a guy you got to be patient with, but the talent is crazy. He's definitely worth a shot right here. Next guy on the board is Paolo Banchero. Paolo Banchero also represents the kind of guy you want in the playoffs, right? Can create off the bounce, can create for others, can get his own shot in both the mid-range and from three. He could score near the hoop. He can defend on the perimeter or down low. He's switchable when he wants to. Now, the thing is, there's a little bit of overlap with him and Franz, and I kind of said that might be a positive back with Keegan. The difference with Banchero is that I think that he needs the ball a little bit more often than Keegan might in the NBA, and also, I'm not hearing the best intel about Paolo. That's all I'll say about that. But his talent is crazy. He had a great tournament run, and he can most certainly end up being the best player in this class. So, Paolo Banchero at number 3 for the Magic. The number 2 guy on the Magic's board should be Jabari Smith Jr. Now, there are questions with Jabari about his finishing inside, about his handle, and those are legitimate concerns when you're taking a guy this high. But he is an unbelievable, otherworldly shooter. The Magic need shooting. He's also ridiculously competitive. One of the youngest guys in this class. He defends like an animal. He wants to play both ways. He can defend out on the perimeter with the best of them, and he can also, I think, show that he's going to be a little bit more of a rim protector than he got to show in college, playing alongside a historically great college rim protector in Walker Kessler. So Jabari Smith Jr., I actually think is the most seamless fit of any of these top guys for Orlando, because he can slide in, not have the pressure of being a primary ball handler, fit in next to a Franz Wagner, fit in next to a Wendell Carter Jr. or a Mo Bamba. He can play that forward spot and just be this versatile guy who can pick and pop, maybe work a little bit in the mid-range, kind of, attack off 1-2 dribble closeouts. It's also not going to make him have this enormous pressure on him to, take this franchise to a new level, because Orlando is kind of, a team, it's a smaller market. They're not always in the forefront of NBA media, so it'll give him a little bit of time to cement himself and figure himself out as a player. But I think the number 2 guy Orlando should target is Jabari Smith Jr. And look, the number 1 guy that the Magic should target, and he actually fits the way that GM John Hammond feels about players with length, versatility, defensive presence, Chet Holmgren. That's the guy that the Orlando Magic will want to target. And he may not have the offensive potential as some of these other guys, although I do think that Chet ultimately could be a number 2 or 3 option on offense. He is an unbelievable above the break 3-point shooter, trailing 3-point shooter. I think a pick and pop threat in the NBA. I think the added space in the NBA is going to allow him to show more of his offensive bag. He's got that devastating spin move that he was able to go to off the bounce in college, playing next to Drew Timme. I think that he's everything and more that the Orlando Magic wanted Mo Bamba to be. Defensively, I think he could possibly be the defensive player of the year. He's a number 1 option on defense. He's one of the best shot blockers I've ever evaluated. Yes, he's skinny. Yes, that's a concern, but it's not a big enough concern because he is tough as nails. He goes right back at you. You could see what he did against Jalen Duren, chest to chest, putting the ball right back in his face when Jalen Duren went up. He's going to be able to handle stronger guys as he gets stronger. Is he going to be able to body Embiid and Jokic? No, but nobody is. But from a weak side shot blocking perspective, from a drop scheme perspective, and from a switching perspective, he's capable of doing all of that. And that's what you need to do to not get played off the floor in the playoffs. And that's the ultimate goal. You add the fact that the Magic have a really good defensive core in a guy like Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr. I think Mo Bamba would be a guy that they move on from. Maybe Jonathan Isaac if he returns and comes back I don't know what the Magic's plans are for him, but certainly with him, it would be a devastating defensive front court in Orlando, and you add Chet into that. I think Chet could be one of the better players and all NBA type talent in the NBA, so I think the Magic should target Chet Holmgren, number 1. Okay, moving on to the Magic's second round picks. Now, with this, I think that I want to go a little bit for fit and then a little bit best talent available depending on the pick. So at pick 32, the first guy I think the Magic should target is Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. A little bit of a sleeper and a guy that potentially is going to go in the first round. definitely a first-round talent, may even be a borderline lottery talent. I think he may be one of the best passers in this class. Maybe not saying much because there's not a lot of really talented passers in this class, but as a pick-and-roll creator, Jalen Williams is crazy. He's also a really good pick-and-roll operator as a scorer. He's a really good shooter off the bounce, and especially a really good shooter in catch-and-shoot situations where he was 97th percentile shooting in that situation per synergy. Jalen Williams, 7'2", wingspan, long, going to be able to defend multiple positions. He's versatile. He's going to play up, down, whatever you want him to do. On the ball, off the ball, he can do it all. Jalen Williams from Santa Clara at 32. Next up, if Williams isn't available, I love this kid. Got to see him work out. This is a guy, the Magic, with target. He's almost like baby Franz. Jake LaRavia from Wake Forest, a little bit do-it-all. 6'8", versatile, was in the ACC, guarding everybody from Caleb Love and Isaiah Wong when he was switched on to quick, twitchy guards. And then he was also having the responsibility of guarding guys like Paolo Banchero and holding his own in that respect. So he's versatile. He can pass it. He made really smart reads, hitting cutters, and just running a little bit of pick and roll, bringing the ball up the court. Love it. And then as a spot-up shooter, I think he's going to be knocked down. He's not going to be this big-time bucket-getting guy, but he just does a lot of the winning things that you want out of these role players. And I think that he is another guy that might go in the first round, but if he is available at pick 32, I think he's a great selection for the Orlando Magic. And the last guy I want to talk about at pick 32 for the Magic is Justin Lewis from Marquette. Now, Lewis is a little bit more under the radar. I think he might actually be available here, but big, strong, 6'8", long dude with just an absolutely crazy lower body strength and core. I think that he's going to be able to guard up because of that, and he can guard a little bit on the perimeter as well, so he's switchable. He also is able to knock down threes, so a little pick and pop action with him. Really smooth shooter, and then I think that he's got enough off the bounce game to attack closeouts. I think that this would be a really great spot for him. He's not a guy that's going to create a ton for himself, but he is a guy that's going to be able to just be a guy who can play off of other players. The Magic have a lot of guys who need the ball in their hands to thrive, and depending on what they do with that first early pick, Justin Lewis could be a guy, if they go guard in the first, that they take and look at in the second. So Justin Lewis out of Marquette, last guy I want to talk about at 32. At 35, the first guy I want to talk about is an international player named Gabriel Procida. This is an Italian kid who is an awesomely fun player. Maybe the bounciest wing in the draft. Putback dunks for days, has a vendetta against the rim, but what you love about him is his frame, his size, and his shooting. He can do a little bit off the bounce. He reminds me of like a Bogdan Bogdanovic type of player, but he's just got a really sweet stroke. And when we're looking for these wings who can play in the playoffs, who are going to be able to handle the physicality of it while also being enough of a scoring threat on the floor that they can get a bucket and knock down shots, I think that Procida is going to be great value if he's available to the Magic here. Next guy I want to talk about on this list is a guy named Ryan Rollins from Toledo. You know, if you followed me, you know that Rollins is one of my favorite players in the whole draft to watch. I got to interview him. He's got a really good head on his shoulders, and he knows his game and what he's capable of and what he'll be at the next level in the NBA. Now, he's not the smoothest fit with the Magic because he's a guard who likes to operate with the ball in his hands, although I think that he's capable of playing off the ball a little bit. So, you know, putting him in a crowded backcourt in Orlando might be not the best situation for him personally, but we're looking down the line, maybe Orlando is actually moving on from some of these guys, and Rollins could be a guy who you look at to come in off of your second unit in a crowded backcourt and just go get buckets. I think that, you know, these type of players you tend to look at as maybe not the safest bets, but I almost feel the opposite because a guy with his offensive skill package, maybe the best handle in the draft, absolute killer in the mid-range, just a little bit more playmaking ability than you want, 6'4", 6'9" wingspan, I think is going to be able to defend multiple positions. I think that he's a guy that is going to be able to thrive, worst case, as a sixth man. So I'm just taking the talent here at pick 35. It may not be the cleanest fit, but I'm going to take him just because I believe so much in his talent. And the last guy I want to talk about for the Orlando Magic, I want to get them more wing shooting. That's been a theme with some of these guys. I'm going to take the risk on Max Christie. I personally don't even think it's much of a risk, especially in the second round at 35. Christie didn't have the best or most efficient freshman year, but when I went to see him live, he just moves the way I want my NBA wings to move. I think his shot is one of the prettiest in the class, and while his percentages don't necessarily show it, sometimes you got to trust your eyes. This is a young kid who maybe just had an off shooting year. I think he's going to get back on track. I think the NBA game is the type of game that's going to fit his play style, and I think that he's got a great frame, he's going to be able to defend up and down. I think that this is a guy at 35 would be tremendous value. And that's going to do it for the Orlando Magic and the picks that they have. I don't know if they're going to use all three. Maybe they use those 2 picks at the beginning of the second round to move up and try to target somebody, you know, a little bit later in the first. Who knows who's going to be available? We're going to know so much more once the lottery is shaken out about who's a realistic target for them. But I think Orlando is in an awesome position. They knocked their draft last year out of the park, getting Suggs and Franz. I still believe in Suggs. I think that he struggled this year, but that's normal for rookies, and I think he's going to have an awesome second year. He's a winning type player. So I'm really excited about the Magic's future and all of the players that they can add this year in the draft. So until next time, guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. The button is somewhere down there. And stay locked in for the rest of this cycle for more premium NBA draft content brought to you by No Ceilings.